Continuation of October's meeting, and let's kind of feel the sense that we are in a state of connection here, because remember we got into quantum physics a little bit. We won't go down that path again, but remember we said it's an energy world, and as energy beings we are all connected in this world. So in this time of separation, feel that we truly are connected here, and let yourself bask in that a little bit, because we know from the science that anything that creates connection fosters our health. So just start off feeling like, yeah, we're in the state of connection, so that's a good thing. So last time when we were talking about stress, one of the things I was emphasizing is how much of stress is about increasing our self-awareness, and how it starts with this fundamental healthy relationship with ourselves, which now in October I said that. Have you all been working on your relationship with yourself, hopefully? Yay, no, yes. So remember that health flows from this beginning place of being in a respectful, kind, healthy relationship with yourself. And most of us are not in a very good relationship with ourselves if we really look at it. Our culture doesn't foster that. So interestingly, with this quarantine time, I mean, isn't it interesting we're talking about stress anyways? So there's the difficulty side, and I do want to acknowledge, I don't know if any of you have lost anybody during this, and if you want to give me a sense of that. If I don't know if anybody's experienced that kind of grief. I don't know if anybody business-wise is in a very difficult spot. We know there's a lot of difficulty with this whole COVID quarantine time. So we can talk about that. We can talk about the fear and uncertainty if you want. Just give me a little heads up here. Are many of you feeling a state of fear or anxiety during this? Just give me a sense, okay? Mark, you are. Gail, a couple, Stu. So some of you are feeling, or some, okay, I should have my glasses on here so I can see all your, I need to know all your names, Linda. So it's very critical. We're going to talk today about acknowledging where we are emotionally, saying, okay, yeah, I'm scared or I'm feeling uncertain. But we can also look at this quarantine time as potentially loaded with a lot of potential, because we have never in history been given this huge pause in life where we can actually do some of this inner work that I was talking with you about in October. This work of getting to know this person here that you really need to know if you're going to move towards greater wellness, less stress, greater healing. So amidst the uncertainty, the frustration, the fear, the difficulty, you can look at this space and time as being one that's also has this potential to do some of this inner work. By the way, have any of you been doing any of this kind of inner work during this time? I know you can't answer, I can't hear your voices, but are you doing a little bit of that stuff? Are you spending a little bit of time getting to know yourselves a little bit? Because this is where our power is. Gail, oh, a little you're saying, yes. This is critical. This is the powerhouse for changing stress in your life. And we are being given this chance here. But how many times in history do we get this pause where all the rushing and doing and the to-do lists and all this stuff get kind of sidelined, where we could actually take the time to get to know ourselves and maybe spend time in meditation or just reflecting or doing some inner breath work. So we're gonna move into that a little bit, but perhaps think about this time a little differently. Like, wow, maybe I'm being given the chance to do some of this inner work that can help shift what's going on with me. And, you know, we get so caught up in all this external stuff. By the way, when we look at stress, I how many of you are watching the news a lot? I am going to highly suggest that you turn the news off. I promise you, you're not going to miss the opening date when you can go back into life. You're not going to miss the chance when you can finally get out there and you don't have to mask anymore. We don't have to social distance. But when we look at stress, stress comes as external things. So we got the news coming in, we've got our life stuff, the financials, all the stuff happening, and but then we have the internal work that we started talking about last time with working with our thoughts, working with our emotions. When you're taking this news in, you're ingesting, you're taking this into your body, you're ingesting stress. And how many of you get off from the news and feel a little tight, a little wound up, a little like, oh my gosh? Okay, we have to realize that we're taking in, I remember I said we're energy beings. We're taking in that energy, and that energy is shifting our biochemistry. Remember, chronic stress equals suppressed immune system every time. So we want to be looking at where our power is with stress. Where is my potential to shift this? And this, remember in the 90s is where they came up with a statement, if it bleeds, it leads, regarding the news. Do you remember that statement? If it bleeds, it leads. That's because in the 90s, that's when 24/7 news came online, and they realized to get their market share, they were going to have to start ramping up the adjectives, the words they use, in order to get people to watch their news. So I've been watching the news very carefully and watching the wording, whether it's online or from the newscasters, and they ramp it up because that's what gets you to, that's what kind of sucks you in. So this is just an area that we can control. When we look at stress, we always want to look at what can I control. And please, we're addicted to this newsreel and the numbers and all this. Please consider turning that off. Just as a little aside here. So in this quarantining time where we have this pause, do you remember I brought up Viktor Frankl in October? Most of you know Viktor Frankl? So Viktor Frankl, the great Austrian psychiatrist, neurologist who was in the concentration camp, and he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And if you remember that one of the pivotal things he said is that the one thing you can't take away from a human being is their ability to choose their attitude going through anything. Because remember, he was watching people in concentration camps that were dying and still sharing their last bits of bread and doing these altruistic things. So that very important statement regarding stress and choice. But the other thing he said, which I can't, and again, if I'm repeating stuff from last time, give me a little wave, because there's so many of it. I talked to so many groups about stress, I can't remember what I've said to one group or another. But the other thing he said that's so profound to me is this statement: between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our power to choose. And in that choice lies our growth and our freedom. So think about this. Stimulus, this is all the stuff coming in. Right now it's COVID. It's, social distancing. It's all these things happening. The response is our reaction. For most of us, the stuff comes in and we react. There's no space. We just react. Oh, it's raining again. Oh, there's that person that bugs me. Oh, I can't. We have this like no space. But we can cultivate the space there. And in that space lies our power to choose. And when we choose, that creates growth and freedom. And this is pivotal for our stress response. So this quarantine, we can consider as a pause here, a space where, how do I want to do this? How do I want to navigate this particular place in life? It's actually giving us an opportunity to do this little things a little differently, to be aware, to create some consciousness about how we're responding to life. So, we can use that to our advantage. So just just thinking about that, and we're going to kind of plunge back into the material here, but just maybe reframe how you look at this quarantine time. Maybe I can get to know this person a little better. I mean, consider, did I talk to you about mirror work last time in October? Looking in the mirror? Does anybody remember? Like, would you consider every day while you're in quarantine, looking in the mirror once a day and saying, hey there, Gail, Stu, Ellie, hi, you're doing a good job. I'm really trying to get to like you. I want to get to know you. Would you ever consider giving yourself a little kudos by looking at yourself in the mirror and connecting with yourself? Or does that seem, no, okay, good. Tell me honestly, is that like too weird for you all? Give me a little, is that hard? Because this is a way of creating connection within yourself. By the way, even for myself here, I'll just see how I do with this, because with that last October meeting, I like to walk around, I like to gesticulate. So I'll try to I have to sit in the seat while I'm talking to you all, so it's a little harder than normal. So, but think about this time, check in with yourself, tune in with yourself. The great poet David White said, the waking time is this magical time. Like, you can, before you wake up in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, it's a new day. Before you go about your to-do, before you go about your typical pattern, wake up and think something different. Do a pause, do a meditation, do some breath work. This is the most potent part of the day. If you just jump into your to-do list, okay, what's today? Oh, let's get on the news. We can see what the new numbers are. You're actually functioning out of the who you were yesterday. This is a great chance for us to move into the greater self that we can be, which is all about healing and shifting stress. So just consider that. And by the way, I do want to mention one more thing before we jump in more back into the stress thing, because it actually does have to do with external stressors. Did I mention to you all about the recent studies they're doing with Parkinson's and the misfolded proteins? Or do you already know about that? Some of you do. Is everybody here, you're all aware of the misfolded proteins and what's going on with that? I'll just say, let me just say, so Stu is I just want to say this quickly, because it's, when we look at stress, we want to look at what's under our control. And I think sometimes with things like Parkinson's, MS, etc., we think, oh, I've got this, and it becomes sort of the who I am, when there's a lot more potential for shifting this when we realize. We certainly know stress exacerbates Parkinson's symptoms. But with this misfolded proteins, and again, tell me, you can give me a high sign if you already know this, but yes.
Ellie posed a question, what kind of proteins?
So in the case of Parkinson's, it's alpha-synuclein. Are you familiar with that? Alpha-synuclein. So some of you know this already, but the thing about it is, so alpha-synuclein, just the beta amyloid is what we're seeing with Alzheimer's, but the alpha-synuclein is the misfolded protein we're seeing with Parkinson's, but it originates in the gut. It originates in the gut, and they're thinking that it's a result of gut dysbiosis. And I'll just say, I'm going to just take 1 minute here with this, and then we'll get back to stress. But you all know about the microbiome probably in the gut. The microbiome is essential for our health. It's the bacterial life in our gut that's essential for our immune system, for neurotransmitter creation, for serotonin development, so many things. But what their gut dysbiosis means, there's something wrong with our microbiome. It's not as healthy. And that seems to be the source of these misfolded proteins and inflammation appears to be the root cause of this. So again, we're not going to go down the path of food, but I just want to, in terms of empowerment, think food can be a stressor. Food can be a medicine. Food can be anything. So if we're adding to inflammation in the gut through sugar, etc., these misfolded proteins make their way into the enteric nervous system, up the vagus nerve, and the alpha synuclein has a affinity for the substantia nigra. So what happens if we take care of the gut more? Again, that's a whole nother, if we ever want to go down that road, we can. But it's, again, you've got to think about food as a stressor. All these things are either helping your body or stressing your body. And this may be one of the most powerful, I guarantee you in the future, this gut dysbiosis is going to be seen as the root of almost every neurodegenerative, autoimmune disease, etc. So it's very important. So in fact, in the Journal of Neurology, have any of you seen this? They have a case study of a man in his mid 70s with Parkinson's who did a 3-month gluten wheat-free diet, and all of his Parkinson's symptoms resolved. For many people, gluten is an inflammatory food, and you don't have to be celiac. So again, it's just all these potential things can go into that we can look at with our own healing. So, okay. So let's just do a quick recap. Last time we looked at stress, and we started off looking at the mind-body connection. And just, we won't go through all that again, but just to say that we have to, as a fundamental starting place, realize that the mind and the body are completely connected 24/7. And what we want to look at with stress with that is that not one thought up here, every single thought I have is going into every cell of my body every second of the day. We have 40 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and they're going into the 50 trillion cells in my body. And those thoughts we have to look at as energy, as matter, because they're changing literally what happens down at the cellular level every second of the day. Even changing the genetics. They are an epigenetic influence at the cellular level. So if I'm having 40 to 70,000 thoughts a day, we're all having them. And again, I'm reiterating some of the stuff from October. And we know that 70 to 90 some percent of those thoughts are negative or redundant. Am I putting healing energy into my body? Yay, nay? Is that healing energy? No, it's not. Thank you for the nod. So think about this. When I teach about stress, I'm always looking for areas where we have power. You have this volume of thoughts every day. Everybody's got them. You can think about this as mental nutrition. What are you going to do with those thoughts? Once again, this quarantine time is actually a beautiful time for you to start checking in with your thought patterns. So 40 to 70,000 thoughts a day, going down into the cells, changing what happens even at the genetic level. So you're changing your biochemistry, you're changing your physiology. Doesn't it make sense that we start taking a look at what's going on up here? And most of us don't. Most of us are just letting the stuff, even in the midst. Now this is, remember I said Dean Ornish, the great cardiologist of our time, said how stress can be an opportunity. So there's stress around, huge stress around this COVID. Can we take this as a chance to pay attention to what's going on inside of us? So the mind-body connection is crucial to understand as a starting place with stress. I am having these thoughts every day, and I have the power to change my own thinking. remember, again, some of this I don't know if I'm repeating, but we said that the current neuroscience shows that by the age of 35, we are 95% pre-programmed thoughts, behaviors, attitudes, emotional patterns, etc. by the age of 35. So if one of the things I say to my groups, I said to you guys, you're this magnificent, infinite potential human being. You're this wow. You, we don't even realize our potential. I think I mentioned the study about creative genius to you guys, didn't I? Does that sound familiar? You mean you didn't hang on every single word I said and remember everything? Does the creative genius study sound familiar? It does. Mark says, yeah. So the longitudinal study basically showing that we're all creative geniuses when you start, 98% in this longitudinal study, and by the age of 20, it's down to 2%. So if you come here with this potential, you are loaded with potential. But if by the age of 35, we are 95% pre-programmed, are we living into this potential? No. So we want to look at how we can unlock that creative potential. And one of the most significant ways you do it is by grabbing thoughts that you're having and challenging them and looking at them and examining them and saying, is this thought real? Is this thought true? Where did I learn this thought? The minute you get into a pattern of challenging your own thinking, and we call this the observer self, your greater consciousness, your larger self. The minute you start being willing to examine and question your own thoughts, it's a game changer. You will start changing stress. You will start unlocking the creative mind, cognitive flexibility, because most of us are just stuck in these ruts of, this is how I think when this happens, these are the patterns, this is what I do. So again, using this time to begin to grab a thought, check in with it. Like say you are having thoughts about this COVID stuff. Make yourself look at a thought and tweak it a little bit and say, can I shift this in a direction that perhaps doesn't create so much stress for me, that perhaps tamps it down a little bit, that can look at it a little differently. That's the power of choice that we all have. And that has a significant impact on stress. So we'll see if we have some more time about thinking here. But so then we talked about stress itself. And if you remember, I said stress is the perception of a threat. So perception and our thoughts are completely tied in together. So if you recall, we were saying events in our lives do not carry the emotional load of stress. It's just the stuff of life. Some is harder, some is easier, some is painful, some is joyful. But the event doesn't carry the load of stress. It's what I say to myself about it. And we kind of went through all that if you recall that, but I won't go over all that. But the important thing here is, once again, connecting with our perception. That's where our power is. Can I check in with my perception? We can look at we're perceiving this life constantly. Like right now, as I'm talking, you're having a perception. You might be saying, oh, I don't agree with that, or I don't know what she's talking about, or that's cool, or oh, or maybe I gotta do this later on, or your mind's just going all the time. But it's this perception part that's our gold mine that we can shift and change if you want. Any second of the day, if you want, you can change any thought you're having and change what happens in your body, change what happens in your biochemistry, your physiology, etc. In fact, do any of you know Eckhart Tolle? Are you familiar with his work? Eckhart Tolle, really one of the great spiritual voices of our time. He wrote A New Earth and many books. He's just amazing. But he says the most important step in spiritual enlightenment is to disidentify with our thoughts. And what does that mean? It's instead of being in the thought. Usually we're like, I'm thinking this, and oh my gosh, and oh, what's going to happen, and this and that. The minute you step outside yourself and watch your thoughts, oh, I'm having a thought about, I'm scared that what if I get COVID? Oh, I'm having a thought about how long is this going to go on? Oh, I'm having a thought, what if I don't get to see my family for a while? The minute you step out of your thoughts and observe your thoughts, you're now in the position of power where you can start to shift and change and question your own thoughts. And this is a dramatic shift for stress in your life. When you're in the thought, can you feel the difference if I'm sitting here and if I'm in the thought, I'm like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to go on? I can't believe it. Oh, could this go on until June? What if I can't see my family? Can you feel the difference between that and my observer self, my consciousness saying, oh, I'm having a thought about when I'm going to be able to see my family. Oh, now I'm having a thought about, geez, how long is this going to go on? Can you feel the difference in that? How one has you kind of trapped in the thought and one has you in a position to maybe look at the thought and change it a little bit. So working with our thinking is one of the most powerful places to begin to shift stress in our life. So again, last time we were looking at the mind-body connection and stress and kind of the roots with perception. So I wanted to ask you all, would you like to go further with thinking and emotions, or would you like to spend some time first on looking at relaxation techniques, kind of creating the opposite physiology of the stress response? Gail, is that what you want to do? Gail's saying yes. Does that sound, should we do that first? Okay, why don't you want to do some relaxation techniques first? And then if we have time to go into the emotions, we can do that too, and thinking a little bit more. Is this working out okay, or is this weird? Are we doing okay? All right. Am I positioned okay? I can't tell.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So just as you have the capacity to elicit the stress response, the fight or flight, the stress physiology, so too you have the inborn capacity to elicit the opposite physiology, which is Harvard's coined it the relaxation response. Now, when we look at relaxation, does it ever bug you if somebody says, you just got to relax? You just got to relax. Like, doesn't it like make you feel like, ah? But so we're not talking that, but what we're looking at is that we all have the ability to create the opposite physiology of the stress response. And the cool thing is, there's many ways you can do this throughout the day. You don't have to necessarily go to a vacation on the beach, or maybe not even 20 minutes of meditation, although I would love it if you would do that. I would. I'll get on my knees if you want and beg you to do that, because you got the time now. But there's all kinds of ways that we can integrate during the day to create the opposite physiology of the fight or flight. Because, and I'll tell you, it's imperative we do this. Now, we're darn good at the fight or flight response. We got that stress response down all right. We're, as a culture, we're like, I think 20 years ago, when I did some training at Harvard Mind Body School, they said that we're eliciting the fight or flight response as much as 50 times a day. It was never meant to be like this. We can't, our bodies can't live like this. This was not how it was designed. And that number 20 years ago is probably much higher. So we're living in fight or flight. We're like, our bodies are always kind of cranked up. The body only heals and repairs in the opposite physiology. The body can't heal in a state of fight or flight. In fight or flight, the immune system shut down. Your body's preparing now because of a threat. It can't. The opposite side. The fight or flight is sympathetic nervous system. The opposite side is parasympathetic, which is the break side, rest and digest. That's where our body heals and repairs. It's no wonder so many of us are breaking down because our bodies are resting in a fight or flight state all the time. So let's look at some of the simple ways that we can, throughout the day, bring about the opposite physiology. So did we get into working with our breathing at all last time in October? We did? Did I have you do like a little check-in with yourself to see where you're breathing? We did? So can we just do a little recap of that? So most of us, when we hear the word breathing, we get kind of tuned out. In fact, most of you don't look very excited right now that I'm saying the word breathing, because we hear it so much, we're just like, oh yeah, the breath, oh yeah. Wow, that's like, we've heard that all the time. When the fact of the matter is, the breath, you are sitting with the most important modulating tool that's free, that's with you every second of the day, that can shift your physiology in a direction just like this, that's opposite to the fight or flight response. And we don't use it. I mean, once in a while, you probably do some deep breathing once in a while. Oh yeah, I guess I should breathe. I mean, you're all breathing now, but most of the time we're not utilizing our breath in a powerful way. But the breath is so powerful because it's the one function of the body that connects our conscious mind with our unconscious mind, and our involuntary nervous system with our voluntary nervous system. So I can sit here and I can say, okay, I'm going to deepen and slow down my breath. I'm going to do that. And I can consciously do that, and my voluntary nervous system will take over. Or I can let it all go, and my unconscious mind and my involuntary nervous system will take over. So it's a bridge between these two. So for most of us in science, it's always been kind of considered, well, we can't control the involuntary nervous system. You know, the voluntary nervous system is like, I'm going to pick up this glass, I'm going to take a drink of water, put it down. The involuntary nervous system is blood pressure, pupils dilating, thousands and thousands of things that you don't think of as under your control. But the truth is, we can get our foot in the door when we use our breath. And again, whether we look at Parkinson's or anything you do to modulate the stress response, modulate inflammation, will have an impact on Parkinson's. So let's just do a quick. We did do this with the breathing. Why don't I remember that? Some of you say yes and some no. Let's just do a quick check-in. Let's just see where we are with that. Just put one hand on your chest and one on your belly, and just take a few breaths and see which hand is the hand that's moving. Just take some breaths here. And how many of you are up in your chest? How many of you are breathing up here? A couple? Ellie, Bob. How many of you are breathing down the belly? Okay, good. Quite a few of you. Okay. So when you breathe with a diaphragm, like down in the belly, and maybe if we meet again, we can go over this a little more thoroughly, but when you breathe with a diaphragm, you are filling the lower lungs, and which is where you get your best oxygen transfer, but you're also eliciting the parasympathetic nervous system. I mean, this is really a gold mine, because again, we we kind of poo-poo the breath, and or we might talk about it here, and then we go about our life and we forget all about it. We kind of just do our regular breathing. I would encourage you to consider this next week creating a breath practice for every single day of the week and see what happens with you as you begin to bring that parasympathetic nervous system online and calm the sympathetic nervous system down. Before you get out of bed in the morning, take 4, 5, 6 belly breaths. Just do it. Just say, I'm going to commit every day. This is how I'm going to start my day. Don't just jump out of bed and get going and do your usual thing. Start with a breath, because you're activating the calming side of the nervous system. It's like getting your inner barometer straight. When you put the news on, okay, or I guess you can't speak back to me here, but some of the things that bug you right now, if you want to mention any, we can put the mic on for a minute or not.
Yeah,
But
I can unmute them.
what's that?
I can unmute. Hold on. Okay.
What are some of the things that are like driving you a little crazy right now?
Politics.
The president of the U.S.
Okay, so perfect. So every time you see him, before you allow yourself to get hijacked and move into a stress state, a state of tension, a state of frustration, whatever happens, whether it's a mental hijacking, a physical hijacking, an emotional hijacking, you are going to tell yourself that you will take 4 or 5 or 6 breaths every single time you see his face. It's going to be your signal. Whenever you see him, you are going to use that in a positive way for yourself to ground yourself with breath first. Okay? Any other things that somebody else said politics too. So that's a hot button right now. Any other things that you kind of are getting to you right now?
Family stress.
Family stress. So same thing there. Use the stressful situation as a chance to first ground yourself, because remember that I said about Viktor Frankl's stimulus response. Create the pause. We can only create the pause for ourselves. You do 3, 4 belly breaths. Say every time something with a family comes up where I get triggered, first I'll respond or I'll react after I do the breath work. And it only takes 10 seconds. But what happens is, instead of you getting hijacked, you can come from a place of response versus reaction. Reaction means every time they do this, I get so mad. Every time something, when I see President Trump, I get so like, ugh, okay? That means we're giving away our power. Our power, and Mark, you probably wouldn't like to think of it this way, but that means President Trump has power over you. I mean, we have to think about it this way. The things that annoy us, do we want to give them the power over us? It doesn't mean you're not going to be annoyed by certain things or upset by things, but do you want to get hijacked? Again, we're looking at protecting your body, and the more you lower stress, and the more you watch stress moment to moment and shift it, your body can then go into a position of healing and repair. See, the ego likes to go, that drives me crazy. I'm going to go, but again, guess who's paying the piper first? If you react to anything in life, is that person or is that situation paying the piper? No, we are. Your body's paying first. So it's not like you're going to go through life like, la, 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 nothing matters, I don't care. It's not about kind of everything just being like nothingness. It's about, how are you going to protect your body from becoming hijacked? And do you want to give away your power to all these situations? And most of us, because we don't have a space between stimulus and response, are giving away our power all the time. Claim your power back. Claim your potential to center back. And the breath is one of the most potent ways to do that. So since we did talk about breath last time, I won't linger that, but I just say to yourself, okay, we got the quarantine. I am going to adopt a breath practice where every hour I will do 6, 8, 10 deep belly breaths. I'll do it when I get up. I'll do it when I get in bed first thing. I'll do it whenever I see certain things that annoy me. See what happens. Play with it. Be curious and just say, let's see what happens if I really bring this breath work in. And I think I might have mentioned this, but Andrew Weil, is that somebody you guys know?
Yep.
Did I mention how he has a CD out called Breathing, the Master Key to Healing? Breathing, the Master Key to Healing. He prescribes breathing exercises more than any other thing in his medical practice because of the power of the breath to heal. It's not just a nice thing like, oh, I'll just do my breath. Isn't that a nice thing? The power of the breath to heal. So don't underestimate what you can be doing with this in terms of lowering inflammation, of calming the body down. This is like medicine for your body. It's a potent force. And so working with the breath, that's the number one thing, because you can do it any time of the day. Mindfulness. Are any of you work with mindfulness, or have you had any mindfulness practitioners come into your group?
Mm-hmm.
So mindfulness is simply being aware of what's happening while it's happening. Yeah, I'm aware of what's happening while it's happening. Well, for most of us, actually, the body is here and the mind is in the future. The body's here and the mind's in the past. So, in fact, right now, your body might be here, but your mind might not be here. I hope you're here, but you might not be here, because most of the time we're not here because the mind is everywhere but. And here's kind of the sad thing about this. Our life is lived in the present moment. This is where our life is, right here, all together. This is very cool. This is our life right here. None of us knows what's going to happen, in an hour from now. I mean, anything could happen. But our life is right here in this moment together. And most of us are not even here to live it because the mind's somewhere else. Isn't that cuckoo? Isn't that kind of the definition of nuts, what we're doing? So mindfulness is about bringing the mind back here into the present moment where we're living our life. So do any of you have, and by the way, just did we talk about this last time? Please tell me if I'm repeating myself, because I can't remember. Did we do mindfulness? No? So if you think about a hobby you love, do you have a hobby that you like, that just kind of like you love to kind of immerse yourself in? Anybody have a hobby that they love? Okay, I guess you're all muted again, so I can't hear you. So when you're immersed in a hobby, do you feel relaxed? Do you feel like your mind, your body, your spirit, your emotions are all kind of there in the moment? Would you say that's true? Okay. So we kind of, we experience, that's a moment of mindfulness. So we might say, oh yeah, that feels good when I'm gardening. Oh, I feel like that when I'm baking or whatever. You can bring mindfulness into any activity of the day and bring about that state of relaxation and calmer physiology. You can bring a mindfulness into eating a meal. You can bring mindfulness into brushing your teeth. You can bring mindfulness into driving somewhere, because like I said, most of the time our mind's off doing something, and so we're missing out on the present moment. And you think about the body with stress. So if I'm here and my mind's off over there, and then I go catch up over there, and then my mind's onto the next thing, and then I catch up over there, and then my mind's onto the next thing. Can you feel how that ramps up the body with stress all the time? I'm always onto the next thing. In fact, Thich Nhat Hanh, in his beautiful book on mindfulness, said, when you wash the dishes to wash the dishes. Because if you're washing your dishes so that I can get to my cup of tea, chances are you're going to have your tea so that you can get to cleaning the garage. And you're going to get to your garage so you can get to this. And most of us are living our life this way. This is stress. This is stress. So mindfulness simply means I'm going to bring my full attention, all my senses, to what's happening here in this moment. And when the mind is in the present moment, it quiets down. So every time, so just like, oh, I can bring the breath into this moment. I can sit there and do some deep breathing. You can say, I'm going to bring my mind into this moment, and your physiology will settle down into a relaxation mode instead of being all jazzed up all the time, because it's the mind that's creating this sense of like, oh, what's going to happen in the future? Oh, that thing that happened in the past. Oh, I can't believe this. We're doing this all the time. Your mind is most powerful when it's here in the present moment. That's where the powerful mind is. But most of us haven't trained our mind. And by the way, the adult attention span used to be about 20 minutes. The capacity to attend was about 20 minutes. It's now down in the single digits. Children are even lower. That means we're creating minds that are like sound bites. Ding, 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 ding. That is not the powerful mind. So again, integrating, if you want to lower stress, something to try while we're in quarantine, say, I'm going to pick one thing, or I'm going to pick 3 things to do mindfully. I'm going to try to eat my meal today fully mindful of the textures, the taste, everything that's happening. And believe me, you'll have a hard time. Your mind's going to want to wander off and do this and that. You might be able to do it for half a meal. But every time you do that, you're teaching the mind to be more in the present moment, and you're not missing out on the gold of this moment. I was doing a class for some nurses, and they're home care nurses. And I went back, I was teaching them about mindfulness. And the next year I went back, and a couple of them came up and said, oh my gosh, my life is like changed, because now whenever I'm with Mrs. X, I'm with her fully. And then I go to Mr. B and I'm with him fully. And instead of being with Mrs. X and thinking, oh, and then I got this patient and this patient and this patient, so they're never present. Now they were calmer. They still got through the same patient load, but their mind wasn't always racing ahead, which cranks up the body. Because remember, the mind and body are completely connected. If my mind is racing, so is my body. So mindfulness is another beautiful way to bring about relaxation for the body. Just try doing a couple things every day that'll, notice yourself. Oh, maybe I go outside. Maybe I get in my garden. Maybe I really look at the flowers. Maybe I really pay attention to everything and get myself really grounded. But and again, I think we think these things sound nice, not realizing how potent they are. I mean, Mark, when you were just doing your gardening, did you feel very grounded and centered when you were doing that? Because that's the kind of state. What was that? Wait, can Mark go on for a second? I'm curious what he was just saying. I don't know if we can do that. Can you do one or can we do?
I can. What is Mark's screen name?
Ellie Separate.
Just gotta find him.
Right. Oh,
There.
well, I guess I'm pointing, but I mean, it
Go
was,
ahead.
it looked like it was something funny that we wanted.
I've been unmuted by the host. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes, I've been unmuted. Thank you. Yeah, when I was out there gardening, putting my hands actually in the earth made me feel centered,
Yeah.
like you asked.
It's so cool. And by the way, we could do a whole talk. You should do some research on earthing. The electron transfer we get from the earth is so healing. Go outside, put your bare feet on the ground, Google some videos on earthing and the healing force and how electron transfer helps the antioxidants and it changes, eliminates free radicals. This is not woo woo. This has been studied. And so that's centering in the dirt but see, we think about this time we're given. Like this is an aside, but I'm thinking about children that usually have to race from thing to thing to thing. And maybe they're getting some chance to ground and center and be mindful. Didn't we all get this growing up? Didn't we all have a lot more time to be mindful and swing or be in the woods? Or this is the grounding, healing stuff that we're missing today. So yes, go out. I love that. Go out in the dirt and feel, and it centers you. That heals the body. We're missing that. We're so off center. So maybe commit in this next week or two while we know we still have this quarantine going on. Every day I will do a couple of mindful centering activities. You're feeding your body good stuff. You're lowering your stress hormones. You're producing healing in your body. So mindfulness, and again, we could say a lot more about that, but how am I time-wise? Are we okay?
2 o'clock right now.
Oh, it's 2?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Can I keep going for a little bit or not? Okay. So another thing is if you would want to work with us during this time is working with meditation. Now, if you'd ever like, I could come in and we could do a whole thing on meditation. Do any of you meditate? You do? That's cool. Good. Oh my gosh. This is one of the most powerful self-regulating tools that we have. And even the studies have shown 20 minutes a day buffers the stress response across the board. I mean, think about that. 20 minutes a day, you're buffering the stress response. But the healing potential of meditation, the volumes coming out in the research are huge. So meditation isn't some woo-woo guru Eastern wackadoodle thing. It is simply the act of teaching the mind to be here in the present moment. That's it. So instead of the mind, the mind is here for you. When the mind is quieter and centered, the body is quiet and centered. So a good analogy for this is, how many of you have ever had a puppy, a dog? Most of you had a puppy or a dog in your life? So you tell the puppy to sit, and what's the puppy do? Doesn't sit. And then you bring the puppy back, sit. What's the puppy do? Runs off again. Come back. So you do this over and over again. So eventually, will the puppy sit? Yes. This is what happens with our mind. When I teach meditation in my classes, people are like, I can't meditate. My mind just won't do it. I've tried. My mind won't do it. And I always say to them, you're seeing what your mind is like. That's a good meditation because you're seeing the nature of the mind. The mind is like, oh, we got to go over here. Oh, you got to go over here. Oh, you got to go. Oh, this happened. This happened. You bring it back. And it goes off again. You bring it back. It goes off again. You bring it back. Eventually, the mind will be present for you. Some studies out of Harvard showed that if two things were present, the body will go into the opposite physiology of the stress response. And those two things are a repetitive focus for the mind. So a repetitive focus, that could be the breath, a word, a phrase. Some people, it might be walking, anything repetitive for the mind, because the mind likes to have something to hold on to. And the second component was a non-judgmental return to that repetitive focus whenever the mind wanders, because it will. Most of us, when the mind wanders off, we kind of go, oh, see, I can't do it. Oh, there's that mind again. Oh, we judge ourselves. A non-judgmental return to the focus. Oh, there's my mind going, of course, come back. Oh, there goes my mind again, come back. You have within your power the chance to literally shift every system of your body with meditation. Even the studies on increasing the cerebral cortex through even an 8-week practice of meditation, brain growth. Again, I could list thousands of things they're showing in the research. But in this quarantine time, why not say to yourself, maybe I'll give this a go. You can actually look up if it's Parkinson's, if you're dealing with Parkinson's, there's actually meditations. You can Google meditation for Parkinson's. Just listen to it on your computer. Find one you like. If it's something else that you're working with in your life, find a meditation online. We tend to think of this stuff as sort of like woo-woo when we're forgetting they have such potent powers to shift our body. And they're free. The cool thing about this is I like things that are free that you can be doing on your own, that it doesn't cost a dime. And they have huge moderating effects on your body. So even if over this next couple weeks you said, I will work with my breath, I will begin to do a couple things mindfully, I'll try incorporating meditation every day and look at it like an experiment. This whole life is an experiment. Just say, I'm going to just see what happens at the end of 2 weeks. With that, I would also say begin to be willing to check your thoughts, grab a thought and begin to tweak it a little bit, shift it a little bit, see if I can change it. Take a look at those thoughts and then see, and that'll begin to create new pathways in the brain and open up that creative potential. Now, since we're after 2, we could get into emotions and everything, but I need to ask if we should be stopping here, because I know you've got breakout, or if you want to do like some questions, or what do you guys want to do at this point?
Stuart, I'll unmute you.
Questions?
Do you want to do, should we stop content right now?
I would think so.
Okay. Any questions that anybody has at this moment? Oh, I think they're still muted.
Yep. I will unmute everyone then.
Thank you.
Any thoughts or any kind of challenges, even if this doesn't sound right? I mean, anything at all that you want to?
Yes. When we try to be mindful in our life, we slow down how we're talking and thinking. Well, Parkinson slows that down anyway. So the rest of you better be very patient with us. It's just allowed to do something. If we're trying to be mindful, it's even worse.
So now I hear what you're saying. So just help me with that. If you are being mindful, would it actually slow down speech even more?
No, it wouldn't slow
Made of-
down. It wouldn't slow down what you're thinking, but it slows down the delivery.
It would slow down the delivery.
Yes, quite a bit in my case.
Yeah.
I can't speak
So
for
if you become more mindful, if you slow down your thinking, it will slow down delivery.
Yeah. Yeah. You
So
need-
if your thinking is faster, the delivery will also be faster.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, that's
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd have to kind of,
before you speak, you know.
yeah.
I've gotten to the point where I have to figure out what I'm going to say to complete a sentence.
Mhm.
Because if you just leave me up to free falling for a sentence, I'll forget some words. I won't be able to do it.
So that actually is an act of mindfulness. Because you're actually, what you're doing there is you're actually thinking about what you're going to say.
Right.
It is mindful, actually. So that's, in a way, so it might slow down the delivery, but in a way, it sounds like it also creates a little more cohesive delivery.
Yes.
Yeah,
Delivery that at least makes sense.
yeah. Were there some other thoughts about things?
Have you ever heard of Jeff Clark?
No.
He's a doctor, MD, and he has a program called Slumber Camp. And it's a 29-day deal that he tries to get so you can sleep better.
Okay.
And one of the things that he does in that is the mindfulness meditation.
Yeah. And have you used that? Have you found that to be?
I've been trying to go through the whole thing because I'm about halfway through now.
Okay. Yeah, meditation, for the Healing Pathways group, I do a CD, and a lot of people use it before sleep because the mind, most of our minds get kind of, we lie in bed and it's kind of like we go over the day and the mind's kind of like, ah. So practicing meditation right before bed, or another thing I have people do is do the breath work, get into bed.
He does that also.
Yeah, and working with the breath again, because it quiets the mind. Anything that quiets the mind will quiet the stress response. Yeah. Any other thoughts or anything?
We didn't take his iPhone into the bathroom with him.
I would just, I know you guys are going to do your small groups, but it's so critical that we do this work of self-awareness. Oh. So that we can, or we can pause here too.
Dog.
Just consider in these next few weeks having this potential to really pay attention to your moment-to-moment life. Let's almost consider it this kind of weird interlude in life where you are given the chance to get to pay attention, to do this inner work, because we don't do it otherwise. Most of the time we're just on our way, but we actually have the chance to do this inner work and pay attention. So check in with your thinking, try some of these practices. And again, I don't know if I reiterated too much from our first meeting. There's so many ways we could go with this, and I know this is a little tricky format, but any other thoughts from you guys before you break? Are you going to do your breakout groups?
I think we'll do a discussion.
People, I don't think.
Oh,
We're still trying to figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how do you split into two groups?
well, you do it, but you can't on this thing.
If you do ever want to connect again, the other thing I just want to have us be mindful of is one of the things that can hurt the gut the most is suppressed emotions. And if we're sitting on suppressed emotions from our life, from childhood, from abandonment, betrayal, hurts, wounds, etc., that's you have a lot of receptors for the emotions in your guts. And this is why this inner work and getting in touch with pain, believe me, the body keeps score. The body holds our history. So that could be, if you'd like to go down that path, we haven't really done the emotion stuff, but if you'd like to, we could do that, because moving this emotional stuff up out of the belly and the body is so important. And that's tune into yourself. If you're scared, say, I'm scared right now. I'm upset, I'm this or that. Just sometimes even acknowledging that can be very powerful. But anyhow, you guys, I could go down many other paths here, but
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
thank you all for
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
good to
you.
be with you, and we could do more if you want at some point.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.